What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So on the build-up for the Switch 2 launch here in a few weeks, Nintendo has been going over a bunch of parts with the system and the capabilities, as well as the games and some of the hardware. But there is one big part that Nintendo has kind of avoided to talk about. However, a recent leak confirmed just about all of the rumors that were going around, and we're going to go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony and their recent financial meeting and report that they did because, yes, they did comment on, guess what, prices and how they could be going up here soon. And then we also have to talk about Ubisoft with a certain remake that I've been waiting to hear more about, and it seems like it's slated to release, well, within the next year. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Steam and a potential data breach that was going around online yesterday. And there's a lot of concern, obviously, because we're talking about potential of passwords for your Steam account that can then have maybe your credit card or something linked to it, and just information in general. Now, this originally was noticed on the dark web as it seemed like a large pack of information was for sale for $5,000? Well, now we do have a response we can see from Valve. This was in a Steam post on their news page where they say a note about the security of your Steam account. You may have seen reports of leaks of older text messages that had previously been sent to Steam customers. We have examined the leak sample and have determined this was not a breach of Steam systems. They say the leak consisted of older text messages that included one-time codes that were only valid for 15-minute time frames and the phone numbers they were sent to. The leaked data did not associate the phone numbers with a Steam account, password information, payment information, or other personal data. So essentially, this doesn't seem to be a massive data breach with a bunch of information that's linked to your account and stuff that's just kind of out there right now. I mean, it's still not a bad, you should really be changing your password every so often anyway. Have it set up for like every so many months. I'm going to change the password here for this account that has my credit card or other information linked to it. It's just a good practice in general, but just in case, yeah, go ahead, I guess, change passwords. But at least in this case, doesn't seem to be a catastrophic data breach that it originally was kind of shaping up to be. Also, we do have a cancellation, which is unfortunate news for Kingdom Hearts fans. We can see this is posted up. This is over on the official Kingdom Hearts Missing Link account saying, "We have made the decision to cancel the development of Kingdom Hearts Missing Link. We wish to convey our heartfelt apologies to everyone who has been looking forward to the start of service. Although we worked hard on developing and adjusting the game in the hope that it would be enjoyed by lots of players, we determined that it would be difficult for us to offer a service that players would find satisfactory over a long period of time, leading us to the decision to cancel development." Now, I saw this pop up and I said, oh, it's a shame. And I looked into it and I said, oh, okay. It was a gacha game where they tried to tie the full story and lore into that you'd have to follow there. And the gacha games, I've kind of gotten over at this point. I mean, I was over it a while ago, but trying to tie in what could be very important lore in general for Kingdom Hearts, which is already convoluted as it is, yeah, I think I would have been good on the game. I would have passed, but like, okay, that's cool. Where's Kingdom Hearts 4? That's still kind of my mentality right now, and I think many others. So, yeah, it's a shame for Kingdom Hearts fans who are looking forward to this, but who knows, maybe they repurpose some of the work they did here into a spin-off or like its own version that releases onto a bunch of platforms or something. However, for now, I think sights should be set, hopefully, on Kingdom Hearts 4 because it's been a while since we heard about that. Today's video is sponsored by Lost in Cult and their newest release in the Design Work series. Valhalla is a heartfelt visual novel with a cyberpunk aesthetic that's garnered a large fan base over the years thanks to its in-depth narrative, strong characters, along with amazing art and music. The latest Design Works release is all about the standout indie title, looking at the game's development journey, its impact on developers, players, and the gaming medium as a whole. All of this is wrapped up in a beautifully designed collectible piece for Valhalla fans. Explore exclusive interviews with the people behind the game, including writers, artists, composers, and more. Being able to hear from the people behind the scenes of a game like this really does add a lot to the experience, and with Lost in Cult's renowned attention to detail and design focus, this really is a high-quality keepsake for fans. The deluxe edition is a timed exclusive exclusive that includes a hardcover variant enclosed with a special slipcase within a presentation box designed to have the look and feel of a real drinks delivery box, along with in-world stickers to complete the look. Pre-orders are now live and will close on June 5th. The deluxe edition is available exclusively during the pre-order campaign. If you're watching after the campaign closes on June 5th, or just want the book by itself, that will remain available. Check the link in the description below and use code SpawnWaveVA11 for 5% off site-wide. Thanks to Lost and Colt for sponsoring today's video. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a Switch 2 leak that was posted yesterday by Digital Foundry and over on Eurogamer. Now, this does complete the picture of the hardware specifications for Nintendo's Switch 2 system. Again, that's due to launch here on June 5th. But while we have had a decent enough picture of what was basically going to comprise the configuration for the system with its custom chipset, as well as RAM and storage, there were some things we were missing and some stuff even from the developer side that would normally be allotted to them that wouldn't necessarily be available, say, as the full 12 gigabytes of RAM with that entire pool. Generally, some of that is then like set off to the side for the OS, and the developers get so much. Well, we even got down to that kind of information. So it does make you think, okay, they must have gotten the information from the back end for developers or SDKs or something there. But nonetheless, I will tell you, the spec sheet that they have, I'd be inclined to say is correct. All right, that's what I'll say there. But we can see this again posted up. This is over on Eurogamer. I'll also have a link down below to their video as they spent time going through it. Richard Ledbetter did, kind of explaining each piece of this in more depth. But again, the specifications here. And from what I could tell, as I was looking through this, it just about confirms everything else we've had already. So some of those leaks that were out there before and people were unsure because it seemed kind of strange, like, oh, the docked CPU clock is lower than the mobile. No, apparently that's correct. And it could be to make up for different things, maybe in portable mode when it comes to the lower memory bandwidth as an example. It's hard to say exactly what the deal is, but otherwise it all lines up as expected. 8-core ARM Cortex A78C. We of course have the GPU Ampere architecture in play with 1,536 CUDA cores, GPU clocks at just over 1,000 megahertz or 1 gigahertz docked, 561 megahertz mobile with the max at 1.4 gigahertz, memory bandwidth, interface, everything there. Now, the thing that was so interesting to me, and this is definitely brought up quite a bit, are the number of cores for the CPU that are offered up for developers versus what's reserved for the system, that being 2 for the system, 6 for developers. But then the RAM itself, 9 gigabytes available for games, 3 gigabytes is actually set to the side for the OS, which does seem like a lot. I mean, this is the correct comparison, by the way, that is being done here by Digital Foundry and Eurogamer. They're comparing it to the Switch 1, the Tegra X1. Again, NVIDIA versus NVIDIA, kind of just showing the jump that they've done here versus the Switch 1. And that, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to do it that way. But if you look at the difference in terms of the memory system reservation from the Switch 1, 0.8 gigabytes to 3 gigabytes, a lot of people right now are looking at game chat, and I mean, yeah, that's probably what a lot of that system memory is being set aside for. I don't know. Some are wondering, will they eventually get it down to where you can have maybe 2 gigabytes for system memory that's reserved and then 10? Hard to say. I mean, things can change as you go along. With the Switch 1, Nintendo did raise the clocks temporarily in load screens for developers to make loading faster. So I guess things are possible in the future as we go through, depending on what developers need. Now, the other thing would come down to the CPU cores, with 6 of them being available for developers versus 3 on the X1. And just overall, across the board, the system is much, much more powerful than the Switch 1. And that, to me, is how a lot of people should compare this, since I know a lot of these numbers are already going to be drumming up conversation arguments around the Switch 2 versus the PS4 versus the Xbox Series S, apparently versus the PS5. Again, the Switch 2 versus the PS5, I don't think is a great comparison in terms of raw performance on paper. It really will come down to how noticeable is it when it's in play with both games running side by side. I think the biggest thing you'll see, really, I would say, is probably the frame rate being cut down for a lot of Switch 2 games, but with how upscaling techniques have continued to evolve and DLSS being used in many games, we'll say, I think, for the Switch 2, I do believe just the overall fidelity in still images, it's going to become harder and harder to tell the difference in general. So I think the Switch 2 will be very capable, but again, a lot of developers are going to be targeting that hardware specifically. So even comparing it to something like a Steam Deck will be very, very difficult. So it'll just now come down to the games and what even Nintendo can do with their first party, considering what they were able to squeeze out of that Switch 1. I'm specifically thinking of Monolith Soft. Great example. I feel like they're going to do some insane stuff with the Switch 2 after even just playing Xenoblade Chronicles X and how large that world was on the Wii U, or even Xenoblade Chronicles 3 on the Switch. Yeah, I'm curious how much larger they're going to make the world, or just even how much better they're going to make the game look. So there you have it. Those should be our complete specs for the Switch 2. You can take a look at that. I have a link down below in the sources. Next up, let's talk about Sony and their recent financial report. This covers their most recent fiscal quarter. So pretty much starting out the year and then running to the end of March. That closes out their fiscal year total. And in this Q4, they did share how many PlayStation 5 systems sold, which generally is the key metric that people are most interested in. And then, of course, the total number of PS5 systems and kind of where it is in placement with the PS4 launch line. Well, we can see this posted up. This is over on Gematsu, where they say PlayStation 5 has shipped 77.8 million units worldwide. Now, this again announced during their financial results, and them saying that 2.8 million PS5 units shipped during those 3 months that ended March 31st, 2025. Launch line with the PS4, it's still like 1.5 million or so behind. And I will say, I think it's going to get more and more difficult to catch up to the PS4, just based on some of the stuff, obviously, that's going on right now with the economy. And I mean, if you look at this currently, it's down 1.7 million PlayStation 5s from the last fiscal Q4 they had. So they are now on the other side of that bell chart that we would have, where it's starting to slow down because you start to run out of people to sell the system to. But during their, they had like a webcast where they talked with investors, they answered questions. They did bring up the situation around tariffs and just the potential of having to raise prices. This is from Sony CFO Lin Tao saying, in terms of the tariffs, we are not just simply calculating the simple tariffs prices to come up with 100 billion yen, but are thinking about the current available information and looking at the market trend. We may pass the price and also shipment allocation, so we are taking different measures in managing to come up to the 100 billion yen. So 100 billion yen comes out to like just under $700 million. And that's basically what their write-down would be with tariffs in place. And I believe that's calculated on the 145%. Currently, there's a 90-day pause that brings it down to 30% in terms of China imports to the US. But it is a 90-day pause. So if you're Sony and you're forecasting an entire fiscal year, you can't really go, okay, well, these 3 months, we'll deal with tariffs there, and then you have to kind of just be in play of what's the temporary pause, and then what would it then revert back to that could be potentially more permanent. And he has 145%. And that's sort of what they're doing here with investors. And I think investors would be really confused. Oh yeah, it's 30% now going forward. We're good. It's like, well, hold on. What happens after the 90 days if there is no agreement reached then? So this is, again, just Sony kind of planning out over the course of a 12-month period as opposed to a 3-month period. So what does this come down to? Well, it looks like, again, as we've already discussed, PlayStation 5 prices most likely going up. Now, tariffs would be the easiest thing for them to point to and just say, that's why, that's it. But I think in general, the way things have gone when it comes to costs around systems and technology, yeah, there is a big push for a lot of this stuff to continue climbing in price. But I will say, for Sony, based on their strategy, and it is a bit different from Nintendo and Microsoft, I don't think they want to raise prices on the PS5, and it's very clear they don't want to in the US because they've done every single thing possible to not raise prices beyond that $500 mark as like the peak for their entry-level system, we'll say. Microsoft said, yeah, whatever, if you buy an Xbox, great, if not, whatever, there's Game Pass, or you know what, you can buy it on your PS5, or eventually on your Switch, or on your PC. Microsoft's kind of out in front of, we're just putting it everywhere. Sony still needs to build an install size for the PlayStation 5, and they are already seeing slowing sales. It's just typical in terms of the usual life of a console, and usually you'd at least be able to start lowering the price. But Sony, in their mind, is kind of stuck. It's like, do we eat the cost on this when their margin is kind of low? It's like 9% or something in terms of operating income. It's like, how much further do we cut this before we have to really reevaluate? And then what happens with the PlayStation 6? A lot of questions to answer here, but I do think it's going to come out to them raising the price of the PS5 in the US as they go kicking and screaming into that. And I think for the most part, you'd be looking at $550 for the digital and $600 for the disc-based unit. That's right. It would be early adopters will have their systems appreciate in value. It's a weird generation. Next up, let's talk about Ubisoft and their own financial report, specifically them talking about the future for this current fiscal year that they're in. Now, this would cover all the way up until about midway through next year at the end of March, and they talked about some of their titles that would be upcoming, which does include Prince of Persia: Sands of Time Remake. We know it's coming out in 2026. They've shown us that in a trailer that was last year. And now it looks like they're at least narrowing down this release time. We can see this posted up. This is over on Eurogamer. It says Ubisoft says it has postponed several of its biggest productions currently in development in order to grant them more time in the oven. Saying, quote, after a review of our pipeline, we have decided to provide additional development time to some of our biggest productions in order to create the best conditions for success. This is from East Guillermo. It says, as a consequence, fiscal year 26-27 and fiscal year 27-28 will see significant content coming from our largest brands. Well, what's coming? Ubisoft lists Anno 117 Pax Romana, its long-delayed Prince of Persia: Sands of Time Remake, Rainbow Six Mobile, and the Division spin-off Resurgence, as well as other titles to be announced at a later stage. So that means that if Prince of Persia: Sands of Time Remake is coming out by the end of this fiscal year, and they've already told us it's coming out in 2026, that means it's coming out, at least according at this time, based on this report, it's coming out either in January, February, or March of 2026. March seems good. I think that's February as well. I'm kind of ruling out January in my mind, so I'm sort of down to February or March for the release. And man, I'm curious about this one. I really am. This is the game that they showed, and there was immediate backlash to it. It's like, what happened here? And then they decided to kind of internally cancel the game, take it away from the original studio, and it's just been radio silence kind of ever since until that trailer that said 2026. So, I mean, we'll see when it pops back up with full-on gameplay, but I am happy that Ubisoft didn't just go, we're canceling outright, or push it out the door, and honestly, kind of just kill Prince of Persia at that point, because Sands of Time Remake, I think, has to be done right for Prince of Persia in general. Just have another shot at any kind of revival. The 2D Prince of Persia: Lost Crown, good game. Again, it's 2D though. I know many of you out there are like, oh, it's cool, it's fine. But there is kind of this thought of lesser than with 2D games. That's just how it works now. So the big 3D release of Prince of Persia, a remake of a classic, is kind of what they need, and I'm hoping it's very, very good. At the very least, they seem like they're trying to hold on to it until it is absolutely ready, and here's hoping it will be able to make its Q1 2026 release, and hopefully it looks good. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium games that'll be live on May 20th. This we can see is posted up. This is over on PlayStation Blog. Let's see, we'll start with Sandland. That's PS4 and PS5, and this is a game I've actually held off for a while now. I've been interested. The demo just didn't really do it for me. However, here it is now in PlayStation Plus, extra tier, so be worth checking out there, definitely. Soul Hackers 2, that's on the PlayStation 5. Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted Full-Time Edition, PS4 and PS5. Battlefield 5 on the PS4. Stalker Legends of the Zone Trilogy, that's PS4 and PS5. That's a good one right there. Again, if you've seen like obviously the new Stalker 2 game, you've been curious about some of the beginnings of the franchise, I mean, there you go. You can check out Legends of the Zone in PlayStation Plus. Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising, PS4 and PS5. This is a fighting game out of the Grand Blue universe. Then we have Humankind on the PS4 and the PS5. Story of Seasons, A Wonderful Life on the PS5, and Gloomhaven Mercenaries Edition, PS4 and PS5. Moving up to PlayStation Plus Premium. I was really hoping to see a couple of releases here, and we got one. Well, Battle Engine Aquila. Now, okay, so I looked this game up and I thought, that looks familiar. I don't have any real memory of this game though. And I mean, people are saying it is a fun game, and those who remember it very fondly. I just didn't really have any experience with it, so I don't know, interesting PS2 title going in. I was kind of hoping to see more than one game go into premium here with this announcement, but I guess at least they picked one that was good. Just overall, not like a crazy month or anything. I guess in this case, Sandland, just out of curiosity, would be a good one to check out. So there you go. Those will be available May 20th. At the very least, maybe I'll give this PS2 game going in a shot, since it seems like it has high marks from 2003, but even more recently, some retrospective saying that it was actually a really good game of that time. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, are you planning to buy a PS5 in the next year? Okay, so 4% say yes, 63% just already have one, and then 33% say no, I'm not interested. So I guess this is the silver lining of the PS5 going up in price, I mean, like 4.5 years in the generation. Many people who wanted a PS5 probably already have one, but that's kind of the situation that Sony runs into, because the way you can entice people who have waited this long to pick one up is to lower the price. It worked so well in previous generations, especially with like the PlayStation 3, where they went from $600 to $300 with the Slim, and even further than that with like a Super Slim, and it just made it so easy to walk into the store and impulse buy a PlayStation 3 system. Big turnaround from where they started, but that just doesn't seem like a reality right now for them with the PlayStation 5. It seems like they're having a hard enough time keeping things where they are. Like, they would eat a tremendous cost, as they say, just keeping it where it is, let alone dropping the price. Like, I did a video where I showed that 3.5 years into the PS2's life, it was half price. It was $150, and that was with a bundle. We're nowhere near that right now. So, again, it's a very, very strange generation. We're going in the wrong direction with prices. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Mike, who says, Nintendo allows decompilations and ports of their games. Well, I mean, they kind of just, I don't know if they'll allow, I guess allow is the right, they just kind of stand there. There's not a lot they can do technically with decompilations, to my understanding. And it's because a lot of very talented, we'll say passionate people, very smart people are reverse engineering and figuring out their own spin on the source code for that game, basically. And when they have completed it, they don't use any of the assets, any of the copywritten material. So textures, music, none of that, right? So it's their own unique code, and you have to provide your own ROM, essentially. And I mean, you can dump ROMs for N64, and so you can have your own cartridge, dump the ROM, and there you go. So that's the situation is, we'll provide our own unique source code that looks for this stuff, but you, the end user, have to get your own ROM, your own assets that are like copyright by Nintendo. So because they don't hold any of that, and because their code isn't copywritten from Nintendo, I don't really know what case they have, and that's sort of what Nintendo, I guess, has run into. I'm sure they're paying attention and just seeing if there's any kind of slip up to where they can get in there. But so far, just based on their activity, since they love being in the courtroom, I guess there isn't much there, at least not now. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed Newswave yesterday, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to hear more about Doom the Dark Ages, since, no, it's out today. We did an entire video, Nate and myself, kind of discussing his impressions on the game. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.